Commissioners Gershenson?
Here.
Kokendorfer?
Here.
Jackson?
Here.
Lubes?
Here.
Joliet is absent with notice. Nelson?
Here.
Madam Chair, you have a quorum.
Next up, we'll move on to the approval of the agenda. Do we have a motion? Motion by Commissioner Loop, support by Commissioner Jackson. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Agenda approved. Next up, we'll move on to public comment. Is there anyone from the public who would like to address the Legislative Affairs and Government Operations Committee this evening? Seeing none, I will close public comment. Next up, we'll move on to our regular agenda. We've got one item, Board of Commissioners, revision to Parks and Recreation Commission Executive Office appointment process. Do I have a motion? Motion by Commissioner Lube, support by Commissioner Gershenson. Alrighty. I know we previously talked about it a little bit, but let's go over this again. So essentially, the miscellaneous resolution 97144 retitled the position of the executive officer for delegating the Oakland County Board of Commissioners authority to the Oakland County Parks and Recreation Commission. So essentially, the resolution today would revert the appointment process for the executive officer of Parks and Recreation back to the commission for confirmation as allowed under the state law. This process would make it more consistent with our board's approval process for other county appointments. So Commissioner Kokendorfer, followed by Commissioner Lubes.
I'm sorry, just a quick one. I apologize for my ignorance. What's the process look like today?
Absolutely. So from my understanding, back in like 1997, 1996, a rule was changed to essentially the board gave over their authority of waiving the appointment process for the Parks and Rec Commission Board. And I think Chairman said it the best in regards to the Parks and Rec Commission, the Parks and Recreation here in Oakland County. They're a liaison. Commissioner Gershenson, are you able to speak on the difference?
She'd love to.
Pam, can you help us?
I think we had to confirm, for those.
But the board didn't have to confirm. That's the change.
Years ago.
Correct.
Okay.
Well, it was
So
taken
years ago-
away.
I'm sorry?
We had it, we gave it up.
Yes.
I'm
So the Board of
sure-
Commissioners gave up their authority to approve the appointment process
Now
of
we're
the Parks
taking
and
it
Rec
back.
Commission. And there always is some questionable, not questionable, but confusing, because the Parks and Rec Commission is essentially their own separate entity. We do have not only obviously commissioners on the Parks and Rec board, but essentially this resolution gives the Board of Commissioners back the authority for the appointment process to be approved.
And I think we're gonna need
And
it.
the liaison committee obviously is the LAGO committee. Does that answer your question?
It does. Thank you very much.
Excellent, thank you. Commissioner Lubes? Did you have a question, comment? Oh, okay. Any other discussion, questions in regards to item number 1? Seeing none, Commissioner Lubes makes a motion. Do we have support?
We already have a motion.
Oh, we already have a motion. Roll call, please.
Okay.
Yeah, we do.
Commissioners Gershenson?
Yes.
Kokendorfer?
Yes.
Jackson?
Yes.
Lubes?
Yes.
Joliet is absent. Nelson?
Yes.
Madam Chair, you have 5 yeas, 0 nays.
Excellent, and I do just want to say that, and I should have said this prior to our vote, but if there isn't any discrepancies, we can do a vote again, but this would go into effect immediately.
Once the board adopts.
Once the board adopts it, it would
Right.
go into effect immediately. Does that change anybody's thoughts, decisions, votes? Okay.
I want to make a comment.
Yes, Commissioner Jackson.
Just because Commissioner Gershenson just said she thinks we're going to need it. And so, could you expound upon that?
Well,
Why at
there's-
this point and why immediately?
Well, first of all, it just makes it consistent with
Consistency.
all the appointments, but in particular, this appointee has got a little bit of baggage that I want to be sure I'm comfortable voting on. I mean, normally I don't second guess a recommendation of a
Right.
committee. I
Right.
trust the committee process. So I'm hoping that we can do that too.
Well, I think the baggage that we're speaking of was discussed amongst Parks and Rec. Per my information that I've been getting from members of the Parks and Rec Commission, so we have to take that into account as well.
Absolutely.
And I just wanted to go on the record with saying that because I don't want it to look like it's targeted, because it is actually.
It's not, though.
No.
What do you mean targeted?
Well, because of this appointee. And
Oh,
what you
this
just
is-
mentioned
right,
about,
okay.
and it going into immediate effect prior to this appointee being brought forth. And so I don't want it to be a targeted effort or something that would even look like a targeted effort without us really even knowing the entire scope of the baggage. We don't know if the baggage are charges, accusations. So as Commissioner McGilvery mentioned, they'll be going through a background check anyway.
You know,
Right.
Commissioner Jackson, I appreciate you sharing that, and I respect that, and I agree.
Only because of the
with things.
conversations that I have been hearing.
Sure.
And I know, judgment comes into these types of decisions as well, but also at the same time, this is the director. The last time the director was chosen, this procedure of us not being the deciding
So I
body was not,
Only for parks.
only
We do
only
it in
for
every
parks.
other instance.
Right.
just
What
for-
about, I just want to ask, and this is just for clarification, because I'm not sure. I've only been on LIGO months in the appointment process. The road commission, for instance. We have authority to appoint or approve who
We
they
appoint.
choose.
We
We
appoint,
appoint
so
members.
it's different.
We
It's
appoint members.
members of the road
But,
commission.
okay, so this is not a member of the Parks and Rec Board. This is the director.
Right.
And so I'm just concerned because it just feels to me a little bit like, and I'll use the word target again, but maybe it's not.
So
It's just for consistency.
consistency, and it's completely understandable for saying that. What I will share with you
Clarification.
is when Dan Stencil announced that he was going to be retiring, we did start this resolution back in February. So I completely understand how it looks, but also understand that this is not a targeted act. It literally coincides with prior to having this individual take on the role as the Parks and Rec Director. This is something already, when our previous Parks and Rec Director, Dan Stencil, left out, this was something that retired. This was something that we already knew we wanted to go back to. We also knew that it had to take place prior to the appointment of the Parks and Rec Director actually being confirmed with the Parks and Rec Commission. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
And
So
I
if that's the
completely understand and
background.
respect how that perspective.
Exactly, because I don't want it to look like, we're just instituting something based upon scope.
Correct. Commissioner
And can I
Gershon.
just say that it was my understanding that Commissioner McGilvery was consulted and agreed with this process? And that was
Back in
before.
February.
That was before.
And any individual was,
was on the table for discussion for the position. Yes.
Because that
Okay,
was
well,
a
that's
key
good.
question of mine, is how Gary felt about it.
well, that's good to put that on the record. Thank you.
And I appreciate you sharing that, because there is a very significant difference in what things appear in this situation versus really essentially this resolution was started in February with the intent it needed to be brought forth to the board prior to the appointment being approved.
Okay. So, and that was why I asked for the background, because I was not
The main
sure.
reason is that Dan Stencil was a merit position, and the new director will not be a merit position. That was changed a few years back, and for that reason, that's why we're switching.
Is there any other questions, comments, or concerns in regards to this agenda item? Alrighty, seeing none, without objection, I declare the Legislative Affairs and Government Operations Committee over at 6:23.
Thank you.
Adjourned.
Well done, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Commissioner